Hello viewers, hope you're all doing good and welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to show you how you can run ELK stack in Docker containers. ELK, Elasticsearch, Logstash and Kibana. But in this video I'm just going to cover Elasticsearch and Kibana and not Logstash. Right, I've already done a video on ELK stack, how you can install ELK stack. So if you go to YouTube and search for ELK CentOS. So these are the two videos. The first one, as it says, CentOS 7 2015. So that's the video I did back in 2015, which doesn't seem to work now anymore. So I've updated the videos. I've done a later video. I think last month. So it's this one, CentOS 7 2018. If you want to know more about the installation bit of ELK stack, you can watch that video. Okay, so that's the video that I did was on virtual machines, not using Docker. So it's just a proper adding the official OS repository for Elasticsearch, Kibana, and installing Kibana. In this video, let's see how we can do it in containers, Docker containers. The idea is to run the complete stack inside containers. So why do we want to do that? So if you are doing that in a virtual machine, if you want to rebuild your virtual machine, you have to go through the same pain again. If you've got a Docker container, it's like you write the code and the code will deploy your infrastructure. So that's infrastructure as a service. It's portable, so once you containerize your application, you can run your containers on any OS, any distribution of Linux. That's what we're going to see today. Let me bring up my notes here. Okay, so we're going to deploy Elasticsearch in a container and Kibana in a different container, and Elasticsearch will listen on 9200, 9300 ports, and Kibana will be listening on 5601. In the video that I've shown you in YouTube, I've installed Nginx, and I was using Nginx as the reverse proxy. But here the focus is on running the Elasticsearch in containers. So I'm not going to do the Nginx bit here in this tutorial. So we'll be directly connecting to Kibana on 5601. Okay, so you can run these containers separately using Docker commands, or in this video I'll be using Docker Compose. So you can put multiple services in a Docker Compose file and you can manage them collectively. And for Elasticsearch, for persistence, I'm going to use Docker volume, and once you create the Docker volume, it will be in var lib docker volumes. And if you don't create the Docker volume, and if you restart your Elasticsearch container, all your data will be lost. So you need some form of persistence. This data volume, Docker volume, will be on my host machine. So whenever you start the container, it's going to bind to that directory in my host machine. Right, let's go back to our terminal. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cd to play directory, and I'm going to git clone my Vagrant repository from GitHub. cd to Vagrant, cd to Vagrant files, cd to Ubuntu. I'm going to edit this Vagrant file. Basically, I've got this repository is for example Vagrant files. So if I want to spin up a Ubuntu virtual machine, I'll use this one. You've also got one for CentOS, and here it's just a loop. If you want multiple Ubuntu machines, you can change the node count to 2 or 3. So each of these VMs will have 2 gig of memory, 1 CPU, and the names will be Ubuntu VM 01, 02, depending on how many VMs you're provisioning, and the IP address will be 172.42.42.101 for the first one, 102, 103, and so on. So in this case, I'm just going to deploy one virtual machine, and I'm going to name it ELK VM. I'm using Ubuntu 18 for the demo, Ubuntu ELK VM. Let's change this to 200, and the VM name is ELK VM. Okay, that's it. I'm going to run Vagrant up. So this is going to provision us an Ubuntu machine, Ubuntu 18.04 machine, so we can play with it. I could have used my host machine. My host machine is Arch Linux based Manjaro distribution. But I wanted to show you, not a lot of people are running Arch Linux, but I prefer Arch Linux. But so many people are familiar with Ubuntu, so I just wanted to show you this demo in Ubuntu. So I'm bringing up this Ubuntu virtual machine. So the whole setup will be on the Ubuntu virtual machine. Okay, so it's going to complete in a minute. Okay, cool. That's done. Let's log into the virtual machine. Vagrant SSH. I'm also going to log in on another pane here. CD to play Vagrant files Ubuntu 18 Vagrant SSH. Okay, I'm logged in. So what I'm going to do now is the first step is to install Docker and Docker Compose. Sudo apt-get update, and sudo apt-get install docker.io. So this is going to take few seconds to install Docker and start the Docker service. So you don't have to enable and start the Docker service. It's going to, the installation bit will automatically start the Docker service. But there is one thing that we need to do, which is we need to add the user to the Docker group. If you don't do that, you won't be able to run Docker commands without using sudo. Docker info, so you get permission denied. Docker ps, permission denied. Systemctl status Docker. Docker is running, so what we need to do is we need to add. So as I used Vagrant to provision, so it has created a default user called Vagrant. So I'm going to add that user to the Docker group. And once that's done, we need to log out and log back in. And now if I do Docker ps, it's working. Docker info. We don't have any running Docker instances. Docker containers, nothing stopped, no images, nothing. Okay, cool. So we've got Docker installed. Let's install the ElasticSearch Docker first, and then we'll go with the Kibana. So the Docker Compose file I've got is in my GitHub repository. So git clone https github.com/justme and open source /elk cd to elk cd to docker, and I've got my Docker Compose file here. vi less docker compose.yaml. So basically this Docker Compose file has got both Elasticsearch and Kibana. So where did I get these files from? So this is not the exact same file that I downloaded from the Elasticsearch website, but I made some modifications to it. Elasticsearch in Docker. So if you click this link, install Elasticsearch with Docker, they will tell you what you need to do to run the Elasticsearch in Docker. So Docker pull, so that's the container image, Elasticsearch version 6.5.4, and to run it, you're gonna use Docker run. If you want to run these container using Docker command, this is the command to run. But as you see, there is no volume binding, so your data will be lost if you restart the container. But anytime you need to start the run this container, you have to run this command. So if you put that in a Docker Compose file, you can manage multiple services. So this one is just an example for Elasticsearch. And prerequisites. If you are running it in production mode, so you need to set this kernel setting, vm.maxmapCount to this one. Let's do that one first. And the Docker Compose file is down here. So that's the Docker Compose file, but it won't look very similar to the one that I've got. So in here, they are going to provision Elasticsearch in a cluster mode. So they will be running two Elasticsearch containers in this one in a cluster mode. But I'm going to run just one Elasticsearch container, and I'm also going to run Kibana in the same Docker Compose. If you search in this in their official site, elastic.co, you'll have the Docker Compose file for both Elasticsearch and Kibana. What I've done is I've combined these two into one Docker Compose file. So services. First one is Elasticsearch. I'm pulling that from Elasticsearch 654. I'm giving it a name, container name. I'm setting a couple of environment variables. So it's Java based. So I'm setting the minimum and maximum heap space to half a gig and some ulimit value. And here is the volume that I'm creating. The volume that I'm using is going to be mounted inside the container under user share Elasticsearch data. So that's where Elasticsearch stores all the data. And the ports that I'm exposing is 9200. So I'm exposing that port to my Ubuntu virtual machine, the host machine that's running this Docker container. And down here we've got Kibana, and Kibana is also 654. Container name is going to be Kibana. Environment variable, so Elasticsearch URL. Kibana needs to connect to Elasticsearch. Kibana is just a indexing and visualization tool. So the actual data is stored in Elasticsearch. So you need to tell Kibana where to find Elasticsearch. So that's the Elasticsearch URL. You can just use the name Elasticsearch. So this has to match the service name you've defined here. As these both are in the same Docker Compose file, it won't have any problems finding the Elasticsearch by its name. And we are connecting it on port 9200. And we are exposing port 5601 for Kibana. So that's where we will be connecting. So here it depends on Elasticsearch, which means if you want to start Kibana, it depends on Elasticsearch. So we first start Elasticsearch and then Kibana. So when you do Docker Compose up, it's going to first provision, it's going to first start the Elasticsearch container, and then it will start the Kibana. And when you do stop Docker Compose stop, it will stop Kibana first and then Elasticsearch. And down below we've got the volume. The driver is local. Okay, and let's start this. But before that, we need to edit the sysctl.conf file and make the max map count permanent. Okay, I think I've closed it. Elasticsearch in Docker. So it's this value here. Copy that. I'm going to edit sudo vi etc sysctl.conf. I'll change the color scheme so you can see it. going to the bottom of the file, and I'm gonna add this one, save the file, and that will take effect on next reboot, but to make it take effect now, we need to do sudo sysctl -w and that one. Okay, and if I do sudo sysctl-a grep for max map count, you get that one that's set. Okay, so now we're all set, and we can do docker compose up. Docker compose not found. That's right, we didn't install docker compose. Sudo apt get install docker compose. So that's gonna pull up lots and lots of dependencies. It's gonna take a little while to install all those. Only takes about a few seconds, not massively long. Okay, let's wait for it to complete. That's completed. Now if I do docker compose up, right, so now it's pulling the Elasticsearch. It's gonna take a while. So you can see here it has to download 75 meg, 188 meg, 6.85 meg. So these are different layers, so it pulls different layers of this image. So first it's downloading the Elasticsearch container image, and then it will proceed to Kibana, and once both are ready, it will start Elasticsearch first and then Kibana. It has downloaded both Elasticsearch and Kibana. Now it's starting up Elasticsearch. Okay, I think it's ready at the moment. Status ready, previous state was red, and now status changed from red to green. Elasticsearch cluster does not respond with the license information. That seems strange. Okay, let's see if we can access it. Okay, so inside the Ubuntu virtual machine, if I do sudo netstat -nltp, and you can see 5601, that's a Docker proxy, which is for our Kibana, and 9200 is for Elasticsearch. Okay, let's open the browser, and we go to 172.42.42.200:5601. Will it work? 172.42.42.200:5601. It says it's connecting, and in the log file I don't see any activities. Okay, so something is happening. Loading Kibana. Cool. It worked. Let's click no on this one. Okay, so what can we do from here? So we've got the Kibana dashboard. If we go to discover, we haven't got any data indexed. So because basically our Elasticsearch is empty at the moment, because we usually use logstash service, and then we will install FileBeat on the on all our clients, and then FileBeat will transfer metrics from the clients, send it to Logstash, and Logstash will process it and send it to Elasticsearch, and from Elasticsearch we will create the index pattern in Kibana and make some nice dashboards. So since we haven't got any of that, they usually provide sample data. Let's see if we can import some sample data. Looks like you don't have any metrics indices. Let's add some setup instructions. So if you want to add any metrics, you can search here, for example, Apache metrics. If you go in here, it will give you some detailed information of how to use this. So download and install MetricBeat. So MetricBeat is something like FileBeat. FileBeat is used for sending the log files from client to Logstash or Elasticsearch, and MetricBeat is used for sending the metrics, say for example CPU metrics, how much load your machine had for the last 5 minutes, 15 minutes. So those are metrics, and we've got the system logs, Apache logs, and so on. So we use FileBeat to send the logs. So basically they are log shippers. This one, metric beat, is metric shipper. Okay, so it tells you how to install metric beat and how to edit the configuration, how to enable the modules. So metric beat modules enable Apache and so on. So that's one thing, and so that's metric beat. And for logging, if you want Apache logs or if you want system logs, it's again the same thing. You install some plugins. You install FileBeat. So FileBeat is the one that sends the log file from the local machine to the Logstash server or the ElasticSearch server. Edit the configuration, tell where the Kibana URL is, and then you enable the system module and so on. Okay, let's go back and add some sample data. So there is sample data here. Let's add sample web logs. Okay, while it's adding, let's go and look at the Docker volumes. Docker ps. I have to log out and log back in. Okay, the machine is a bit busy. Docker ps. So we have the Elasticsearch Docker container running, Kibana running. And if you want to look at the status, you need to be in that directory. cd to vagrant. No, where is it? cd to ELK Docker, and where your Docker compose file is, you need to be in that directory. And if you do Docker compose ps, it will tell you the service name, Elasticsearch Kibana, and what's the status. The status is up, and what ports are being forwarded to the host machine and so on. Okay, Docker volume ls. So local docker es data 1. So that's the volume that we created. Tail docker compose.yaml. So that's the volume we created. Es data 1 local driver. And usually this will be in var lib docker volumes. So there it is. So that's the volume for persistence. So even if you delete your stop your Docker container and restart it, it's going to attach to the to this Docker volume. Okay, so it's been added. Let's view the data. Sample logs data. This dashboard contains sample data for you to play with. Okay, so it has got lots of data, and these are pretty looking graphs. Wow, these graphs are really very nice. Look at this graph. I don't know how to interpret this graph, but this one looks very cool. And this is the country graph. Cool, that's the sample data. So basically we are running Elasticsearch and Kibana in Docker containers. I will also do a video on how to deploy your ELK stack in Kubernetes. So I'm also doing a separate video series on Kubernetes. I think I have uploaded around 28 videos so far, I think. So that's a series. That series is nearly coming to an end. I've only got like 4 or 5 more videos to process. And I'll also make a video on how you can deploy ELK application in your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, and if I go back to the terminal, if I do Control-C, it's going to stop the Kibana and Elasticsearch service. And if I do Docker compose ps, it says exit, exit. That's okay. And Docker compose, you don't have to do up now, so it's already done, and we can do Docker compose start. So that will start Elasticsearch first and then Kibana, because there is a dependency. Kibana depends on Elasticsearch. That's running sudo netstat -nlcp 56019200. Docker images, you can see it has pulled Kibana and Elasticsearch image. The tag is 654, and if you want to stop it, Docker compose stop, or if you want to take it down, Docker compose down, and Docker compose remove. I think Docker compose remove minus minus help. Yep. By default, anonymous volumes attached to containers will not be removed. Let's check that status. Docker compose stop. Let's stop it first. Stopping Kibana, stopping Elasticsearch. I think it's still in the middle of starting these containers. That's why it's taken so long. So that's stopped. Docker compose ps. They are not running, and if you see the exit status, we killed it actually. Docker compose down. What's down? Containers for services defined in the compose file. Networks and volumes defined as are never removed. Okay, so it says volumes are never removed. Minus minus RMI for removing images. Okay, let's do the Docker compose RM. Going to remove Kibana and Elasticsearch. Yes. Docker compose ps. There is nothing, so we need to do Docker compose up now to deploy those containers again. Docker images, we still have those images. Docker volume ls, so we still have the Docker volume from our previous deployment. Docker volume remove, Docker volume remove Docker underscore es data 1, Docker volume ls, so that's gone. Docker RMI, Docker RMI elastic Docker images. Okay, Docker RMI Docker dot elastic search. That's deleted. Docker RMI. Okay, so all deleted. Don't know why it's taking so long. Okay, cool. So now we have cleaned up our environment. Right, that's it I wanted to show in this video. If you've got any problems or anything not working for you, or if you think I could do anything better, please let me know in comments and I should be able to respond to you. Thank you for watching this video, and please share it with your friends if you found this video really useful. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos. I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.